Hi, my name is Reed Silverne. The name of this show is Fed Pride. Reason it's called Fed Pride is because I'm a federal worker and proud of it. Thanks for tuning in. This is basically live to tape. For me, it's April 11th, and that's a Friday. And it's the day that GE just collapsed on the stock market. Went down 13% in one day. Probably the biggest drop in value since the great one-day drop or two-day drop in 1987. And for you, it's probably Sunday, the 13th of April, or it's Tuesday, the 15th of April. Or if we decide to rerun this, it could be sometime in the future. Basically, you could be taking a look into the past. Anyway, whatever I talk about today is going to be completely obsolete and definitely not even worth thinking about. That, of course, is one of the charms of this show. Why it's a charm, it's hard to say, but that's always been the way it is. Back in the 90s, I was actually live to live, and I was speaking right off the top of my head. However, you still have the fun of watching me fall off the chair if I screw up, because it's live to tape. Whatever happens over here actually physically goes on tape. Just to check things out, I'm going to do the traditional spin of the earth behind me, and we'll see how that works out. It did just fine. Now I have a virtual co-host who's not on the whole 30 minutes or the 25 minutes. However, she does make an appearance. And I've asked her, or she suggested really, that she go and bring my show to some media consultants and see what they said. I'm going to bring her up over here and phone in over here. So let's see how that works out.
Hi.
Hi.
It's me, Annie Mae. Well, I talked with our media consultant.
Oh, how'd it go?
Gave him your tape.
Oh, good.
You want to hear?
Yeah.
Well, let's say there are a few criticisms.
Oh, what are
They're
they?
constructive.
Yeah.
We need to do something about your outfit.
My outfit?
Perhaps, if you're going to go wonko and wonkish all the time, maybe we can set you up with a bow tie like
A bow tie?
Tucker Carlson.
Oh, jeez.
Or at
I can't stand that guy. Well, I am kind of wonkish, and I've been talking about economics, so we're going to have to think about what to do.
least a suit, like all the other talk show hosts.
Yeah, I could be a
The
little
other thing,
formal.
if you want to be more relaxed, go for a younger crowd. You can have an open shirt
Yeah.
or a polo shirt or something.
Polo shirt.
Talk about it.
Think
But we
about it.
have one big problem.
Oh,
Yes, that's your forehead.
my forehead.
There's a gigantic shine
Oh,
that comes
God.
off your forehead.
I can even
That,
see it myself.
to say the least, blinded our consultant.
Oh, jeez.
We're going to have to do something about that.
You're going to make me
We'll
self-conscious.
talk.
All right.
Anyway, give me a call.
I will.
Let's do lunch about it.
Oh, okay.
Maybe we can meet with the consultant. You never
Maybe.
know. See what you think.
All right.
Things will improve.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye. So anyway, looks like, and I'm looking at myself right in a monitor off camera over here, and sure enough, I do have a shiny forehead. Anybody who knows me or knows my show knows that I don't have any staff. The staff here at Access Tucson sets up my shot, and I really appreciate it. And they make sure that the super digital tape and all that stuff is in the control room. But I don't even have anybody in the control room. Now, I definitely don't go into the green room and powder my forehead. But indeed, I'm looking at it right now. I do have two shiny spots. And in order to get a nice, bright figure over here, there's a very, very high-powered light shining on me, and she's absolutely right about that. I probably am not going to fix it, but you never know. I might have a polo shirt next week. We'll see if I should go wonkish and get a bow tie, or whether I should go for a younger crowd and switch to a polo shirt. I think either way, no matter what the consultant says, I'm a 55-year-old cost accountant, and nothing can stop that, and retired federal worker. So, excuse me, I don't think I'm ever going to be able to get over that, and Fed pride is what it is. There's been a tremendous amount happening now in the world and in our domestic economy. Forgive my throat clearing again. That's another instance of this being truly, truly live to tape. So among the big things that's happened in the last couple days, the Congress has decided to table, this is the House of Representatives, the trade agreement with Colombia. And Colombia, of course, has been confronting a war with a guerrilla group called FARC, which are the Fuerza Armada Revolucionario Colombiana, and they found that they had a headquarters actually across the border in Ecuador, and they raided that headquarters and found the number 2 guy, in fact, a guy who's probably really the number 1 guy in charge of FARC, who was negotiating to release 750 hostages that they had kept. I believe they might have as many as 3,000. And the most famous of which is the daughter of an ex-president and the head of a political party in Colombia named Ingrid Betancourt, and who's also a dual citizen of France. So France is very concerned about that. There was a tremendous reaction to the fact that the Colombian army crossed over that border. When they did, and they caught basically almost all of the command and control of this revolutionary group called FARC, which basically survives on drug dealing, cocaine dealing, over the border. You'd think that the two parties that were involved in that, supporting FARC, would be embarrassed about it. Instead, they raised an issue of sovereignty. The OAS supported them, at least on paper. And Venezuela, who's, of course, my bête noire of Hugo Chavez, is in charge of that. Hugo Chavez is an elected guy who tried to create a series of referendums changing and the Constitution over and over again to make him president for life and basically a socialist in the old Cold War communist sense, dictator, and was rebuffed about 6 months or 4 or 5 months ago. It actually lost a referendum, the first loss of an election or referendum he's had in 9 tries over 10 years. Basically, the people of Colombia said, or the people of Venezuela said, we don't want you to be president for life, and we don't want you to be able to take over all and any private property at will or at declaration. So kind of to change the focus on it, when Colombia actually crossed the border and killed the number 2 guy, who I feel is probably the real leader of FARC in Colombia, Hugo Chavez actually mobilized an army on the border between Colombia and Venezuela, even though Venezuela wasn't a direct participant in that. It ended up that there were computer disks, hard drives that were captured in that raid, and in that raid they found out that FARC had received $300 million from the president of Venezuela, obviously smuggled funds because there's no open way that they can get funds to them. Previously, the president of Venezuela had tried to negotiate a deal between FARC and the Colombian government so that FARC would get a completely unmolested and complete control of a province along the Ecuadorian border in return for releasing some of the hostages. Well, the Colombians said, forget this. This is a completely illegitimate organization, and it was. It's financed entirely by drug dealing. And it's basically trying to take over the government and impose a communist dictatorship on Colombia, and who knows how many people they would kill in the process. Basically, it's a Stalinist outfit, similar to the early Castroids. So basically, that thing went down, and in order to show solidarity, I guess you might say, with Colombia, President Bush wanted to set up a bilateral free trade agreement with Colombia. There's a free trade agreement with all the countries of Central America, including the Sandinista-controlled Nicaragua. And there's actually a free trade agreement with Ecuador, which has been taken over by a client, and his name is Correa, of Hugo Chavez. There, it's also an oil-producing country. And basically, Hugo Chavez has been pushing his own free trade area, dominated by him, dominated by Venezuela, an anti-American free trade. And he tried to force or persuade, however way you want to put it, the other countries in the northern and western part of South America, basically to abandon all free trade with the United States. So it's a very unfortunate time for this free trade agreement to come up in the United States. As far as foreign policy is concerned, in my opinion, Hugo Chavez is one of the great threats. He's been buying Russian submarines, Russian fighters, Russian tanks. He spent a lot of his oil money building up a military where he has no real enemies on his borders, and in order to basically oppose the United States itself and our interests throughout Latin America. Just because of some of the things that he's done, his client states are Bolivia, which is a guy named Morales, Correa in Ecuador, and Ortega, who used to be, or still is, the head of the Sandinistas, who got elected in Nicaragua. So there's been a lot of activity in Latin America, and ironically, Venezuela is in charge of Citgo Gas, which is a big gas station chain, mostly in the east coast of America. I think there was one in Tucson. And there's been a movement within the United States, basically, because it's directly owned by the anti-American government of Venezuela, to boycott Citgo Gas or Petro Express, which is another basically name change for this Venezuelan-owned oil company within the United States. So we are basically paying $100 or $110 a barrel to finance the hand that wants to basically to sell the shovel that wants to cut off our head and bury us. And meanwhile, the free trade agreement with Colombia got caught up in electoral politics. The latest big election is going on over here, primary in Pennsylvania. I'm sure that if Obama or Hillary Clinton, one or the other, had won the Democratic nomination already, it probably wouldn't be that big a deal. But Pennsylvania is one of the number one what we call Rust Belt states. It has a lot of old-style industry, which is being whose jobs are being exported to China and to other countries throughout the world. So free trade agreements are being blamed for it. It's very, very unlikely that Colombia is going to if Colombia is going to take jobs from the United States, that job is already left for China. Even NAFTA, the maquiladoras and the border of the U.S. and Mexico, who are opened up under NAFTA, they're closing because they can't deal with the competition from China either. So it's hard to say. Colombia does produce coffee and some other things, and of course, as the world's largest manufacturer and refiner of cocaine, cocaine cartels have mostly been broken up. There's a very, very famous one called the Medellin cartel, and its boss was hunted down and murdered, or actually just killed by the government. Then that was replaced by another competing cartel called the Cali cartel. That's been pretty much broken up, and now almost all the cocaine is run by the FARC, that revolutionary communist organization that's supported by Venezuela and Ecuador. It could be very, very embarrassing, even though Colombia lost in the OAS and was condemned for crossing a border. They are planning to go to the International Court of Justice, the ICJ, with these hard drives that they claim prove that Hugo Chavez, in fact, has actually given $300 million to this FARC organization. And while they were, Hugo Chavez was negotiating so that FARC could have exclusive control over a refuge on the border of Ecuador and be the exclusive, basically, government of this region of Colombia. Colombia's just once and for all refused to do it, and of course. Now, with this election coming on, and another wrinkle in the whole thing is the campaign strategist for Hillary Clinton, a guy named Penn, also happens to be a lobbyist. And who's he a lobbyist for? He's a lobbyist for the Colombian government. So he was meeting while Hillary Clinton was going against any free trade agreement with Colombia or any other country right now in order to impress the people of Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, states that she's won, that are basically against free trade agreements, that are very, very union-oriented. He goes to the Colombian government behind her back, basically says that if she's elected president, everything's going to be fine, don't worry about it. He was fired by her, or demoted, I think was the word that was used. So all this has occurred not right before, but a week and a half before the big Pennsylvania primary, which is probably going to be the make or break primary for Hillary Clinton. So there you are. Nancy Pelosi has postponed indefinitely any consideration of this free trade agreement with Colombia, and Bush and McCain are for it, Obama and Hillary Clinton are against it, and it's become a political football, which is unfortunate because it would be a vote of confidence in Colombia during its confrontation with Hugo Chavez, who I think even Obama would consider to be an enemy, an outright enemy of the United States, who's arming himself to the teeth with funds that are provided by us because we are dumb enough to actually buy 1 million barrels a day from Venezuela. So that's basically that issue in a nutshell. There's a bunch of other issues going on. Bush went to Russia while I was still talking about commodities trading and so on and so forth. And there was a NATO summit. The NATO summit, Bush was pushing to have the Ukraine, this big country over here on the border of Russia, and Georgia on the border of Russia, join NATO. And of course, NATO historically was a military agreement, I guess, or organization directed against the Soviet Union back during the Cold War. In return, basically, the NATO consensus turned down any consideration of having the Ukraine and Georgia join NATO right away, because NATO has already brought in the Baltic countries, Poland, Czech, Slovakia, Hungary, and they're bringing in Croatia and some other countries in Eastern Europe, and Slovenia, I believe, are already have already joined or are on their way. So the Russians are feeling encircled. They've also been very, very anxious to take back what they call the Near Abroad. What is the Near Abroad? Near Abroad are all of the countries that were part of the Soviet Union but had become independent in the wake of the breakup of the Soviet Union back after 1991. The Russians feel that there was a humiliating period. The Russians basically control over half of the natural gas supplies, which of course is clean burning fuel that fuels electrical plants throughout all of Western, Southern, and Eastern Europe. The Europeans actually paid for these pipelines, and I've done shows about alternate pipelines and the attempt of the Europeans to try to get around Russia. But right now, Russia, they're dependent on Russia for half of their crude oil and a large portion of their natural gas. And they're looking for alternative sources, mostly back in the Middle East. In fact, they paid for these pipelines to become independent of Middle Eastern oil and natural gas. And now they're going back to the Middle East. In fact, the worst player is Switzerland over here just made a deal with Iran, enemy of the United States and enemy of Europe, that's been upgrading and creating high-grade nuclear fuel that could conceivably be used to make nuclear weapons, that the Europe as a whole is trying to convince them to stop. But to Switzerland, it was more important to make a deal to buy Iranian natural gas than it was to support boycotts and so on and so forth to try to persuade the Iranians not to build nuclear weapons. So Europe has been having a problem there. So what the Europeans said is the other big issue, of course, with NATO is that we in America want to build a anti-missile system with the, I believe, the actual anti-missile in Czech and the radar in Poland, but I could be mixed up. Could be the radars in Czech. And so what NATO did, Putin is absolutely dead set against it. He considers it a restart of the Cold War and in a virtual attack on Russia's nuclear ability, even though Bush is saying that it is directed against Iran and their development of nuclear weapons. They have intercontinental, or at least long-range continental weapons, missiles. And so what they agreed to do was to allow to go ahead with the anti-missile system, but not to enrage Russia any further by bringing in the Ukraine and Georgia directly into NATO, protecting them from Russia, but also confronting Russia. It's interesting that Russia has actually cut off, on one time or another, energy supplies to both of these nations, to both Georgia and to the Ukraine at various times, in order to try to control these governments. My name is Reed Silverne. The name of the show is Fed Pride. The reason it's called Fed Pride is because I'm a federal worker. I do have another half a minute over here. So basically, there's been a lot going on in the world in what I call the new Cold War period. Medvedev, the new elected president of Russia, will be taking over. I think he might have already be officially on the books as being president. And there's a lot going on in the world. Thank you very much for watching, and I appreciate it.